Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today.
Welcome to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. I hope you are having an amazing day today. My first story is about a coat. It's not just any coat. This coat has saved many lives, and it has created careers, jobs, a new life for so many people. So the country's homeless crisis continues to grow, but there is a non-profit organization called Empowerment Plan, and Empowerment Plan has made a huge step forward in helping that crisis, and they've actually gone above and beyond. So let me just kind of rewind a little bit. Originally, this nonprofit organization was targeting to help the homeless stay warm, hence what I say about the coat, especially in Detroit's cold temperatures and wind gusts. You know, the harsh weather claims countless amounts of homeless people's lives every single winter. So that's where Empowerment Plan was doing what they can to help them and to make sure that they could survive if you couldn't be in a shelter. So Empowerment Plan started with this coat. And yes, it was keeping everybody warm, but now it has done a lot more than just keep the people warm. They have now accidentally become one of the most successful employment programs for the country. So this plan hires homeless people, teaches them to make these coats for others that are suffering in the cold weather. Now, it's not just a regular coat. No. So these coats, they're absolutely amazing. So they are a warm winter coat. They're actually storage as well. You can put them in as storage, and they can become full-length sleeping bags against frostbite and death. Yes. So literally these coats are storage. Obviously they're coats. They keep you warm, and it becomes a full-length sleeping bag. It's absolutely amazing. But the behind the scenes of these coats is actually kind of what the coolest part is. This coat really, it does so much more. It has helped 100% of its homeless workers afford their own homes within months. Okay, so let me give you more of a background story. The founder of this amazing nonprofit organization, her name is Veronica Scott, and she never planned to be a CEO in her entire life. She was actually off and on homeless throughout her childhood. Her family struggled with job loss, mental health issues, addiction, so she was actually on and off the street for a lot of her life. At one point, she said that she was able to fit every single thing that she owned into a backpack, encouraging her sketch pad. She was in love with art, and this was her sketch pad. This was something that she could do, and she could, fall in love with, have this hobby with, absolutely nothing. She had her sketch pad and a pencil, and she could go. So the love for art, some scholarships, and financial aid got her into a college eventually. She did creative studies in Detroit, where she majored in product design. She originally thought that she'd work for like a big firm, maybe in New York City. That's kind of what she was dreaming, But mostly she wanted to take care of her family. She wanted to be able to do that. She never wanted to make sure that her family never ended up on the street or anything like that. But everything kind of got detoured for her when she was just 20 and she's in college and she got an unusual class assignment. And this class assignment was to design, a project that fulfills a need in the community. So then she started, researching a need in the community in Detroit. And this is when she learned about the homeless crisis, specifically in Detroit. So with absolutely no experience in clothing design, she decided to design this coat that turned into a sleeping bag. The first coat actually took 80 hours for her to complete. And then she took her early prototypes to a local shelter for feedback from the homeless. And then that's when things really kind of spiraled out and changed for her. She remembers a homeless lady was yelling at her, saying, you with the coat, hey, coat lady. She just kept shouting and shouting, saying, this is pointless. I don't need a coat. I need a job. And then that's when it kind of all hit her. She got the idea to take her class project into a mission to employ homeless people. So she graduated from college in 2011 in December, and on January 1st, 2012, she started the empowerment plan. So almost everyone thought that this plan would fail. She didn't have a lot of people believing in her. This entire organization was funded strictly by just a PayPal button on her blog at first. The dean from her college actually connected her with a CEO of Carhartt, which is a rugged kind of clothing manufacturer, and they eventually became a supporter of the nonprofit organization. So they actually donated a few sewing machines to her, and they even flew her out to spend some time in the factory so she could kind of see how it was all done correctly. Then she started her hiring process, and she said the hiring process was absolutely amazing. She got all of her employees from a homeless shelter. She says she will never forget, the eagerness of the job candidates. One even showed up to an interview 2 hours early. There was nothing stopping these people to get a job and get their life back on track and get off of the streets. So, the hiring process was something just in itself, first of all, but she knew that she lacked the skills to teach her new hires, how to make these coats efficiently, right? So she took to social media like we do these days, and she posted to Facebook, and she basically asked, is there anyone that knows how to sew? I need someone to come in and teach us. One woman responded, and later this woman actually became a full-time employee at the organization. So now let's fast forward 8 years, the empowerment plan. It is incredible. It has employed more than 80 homeless people. Many of them have graduated and started their own business ventures, and not a single worker has reverted back to homelessness. It's just absolutely amazing. So they have actually shipped 35,000 sleeping bag coats around the world. They have literally handed them out to the entire U.S. and now 20 other countries because of different partnerships within this organization. It's completely funded through private gifts. So each $125 donation pays for the materials and labor for one coat. So the donors can actually request coats to go to specific communities or wherever the greater need is. So last year, a corporation actually sponsored 2,000 coats, and it went to 20 different countries. And actually members of the team of the empowerment plan got to go to these communities. It's such an amazing nonprofit organization. I just love this story about how it came up. So let me give you a success story from one of the people who worked at Empowerment Plan. Who still works at Empowerment Plan. So her name is Pam Warren. She's 48 years old now. And 4 years ago, she was homeless, living in her car with her children. I believe she had 4 children, and 2 of the youngest were living with her in her car. She got laid off from her car parts manufacturing job after suffering a severe blood clot, and it made her unable to work for months. And she knew immediately that she was going to lose absolutely everything because she had no help. So, kind of rewind a little bit, a few years earlier, she decided to leave her husband and raise her children alone. She got married pretty young, in the beginning of her 20s, and this relationship developed into some physical abuse. She stayed for so long in this relationship because she was a stay-at-home mom, once she was married and with her husband at the time. And she knew that she wouldn't be able to support herself or support her family and her children if she left him. But eventually, of course, she did have to leave him. She did do that. But then they were living in their car. She called many shelters, trying to get in constantly day after day, and they couldn't afford to shower. So they couldn't afford to bathe at all. And her daughter ended up missing a lot of school because she was so embarrassed to go to school after she has not showered for so many days. And then her daughter was completely traumatized by the bullying because of her lack of hygiene. She actually missed at least half of a school year, which resulted in her failing grade 5, and she actually had to repeat it. So they lived in their car for 4 months. Eventually, they did get into a shelter where she learned about Empowerment Plan nonprofit organization, because Empowerment Plan actually goes to different shelters, and they'll kind of host job fairs once in a while, and they'll go to shelters and kind of get new employees or whatever the case is. So she knew that she needed a job. She wanted a job, but sewing, she knew absolutely nothing about. She never even thought to think about this sewing. Like, she had, no idea. So it's actually a very competitive organization to get into now because so many people are wanting this job. So you actually have to go through quite a few different interview processes to get the job. So anyways, she did go through all of her interviews. She got the job. She said that her mouth hurt from smiling so much. It was like the best day of her life. And it gets even better. She found her hidden talent. She says that she is a seamstress. She is great at making pockets. She absolutely loves doing it. She's one of the most efficient people, I guess, in this nonprofit organization. And she's just completely fallen in love with it. And everything has gotten on track. Her kids are doing well. She's not living in her car, of course. And I just thought that was kind of a cool little success story from this amazing nonprofit organization. They have done so much. Now, it is time for a little bit of a break, but before we go on a break, I'm going to leave you with one question to think about. If you found $27,000 on the ground, would you keep any of it? Or would you give it all back? That's what I'm going to leave you with, so stay tuned.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast. So before the break, I left you with a question. If you found $27,000 on the ground, would you keep any of it? Well, George Candash didn't keep a single penny when he did find $27,000 on the ground. So he actually found a box of cash outside an ATM in Michigan. He picked it up, he put it in his car, and he drove away. But he drove right to the Westland Federal Credit Union and gave them the box of cash. So there was some security footage from the ATM, and the security footage shows a security guard unloading boxes of cash from the ATM, but leaving one box on the side of the street. 20 minutes later, you see George getting out of his car to inspect the box because he saw a tag that said $40,000 on it. It only turned out to be $27,000, but it's a lot of money still. So he didn't take a single penny of it, and he brought it to the credit union. And the bank actually did reward him with an undisclosed amount of money. They said that was a lot of money that could have resulted in significant loss, and we just wanted to give him a token of our appreciation. That was one of the cash managers, Alyssa Jo, who said that. They said that if he didn't return the cash, they actually would have tracked him down, like, by his license plate through the ATM footage. So it's great that he did bring the cash back. And George says, "It's not mine, and any honest person, I would hope, would take it back in." You know, as much as it would be great to take that $27,000, I just don't think I could have taken it. I think I would have done exactly what George did. But I thought that was kind of a cool little story. Now, my next one is about a homeless veteran who had absolutely no family, but he was treated to a burial service with full honors in Florida. So he passed away in Florida, in St. Augustine, just late last year. He was known around town as the friendly homeless man who would happily chat about anything. His name is John Maid. He would chat about weather, sports, you know, whatever a person walking by wanted to talk about, he would talk about it. He was super friendly. The police officers say that he never bothered anyone. He never asked for anything. He just wanted to chat and do his thing. He was totally harmless. But they realized that he actually never really talked about himself. So when he passed away, they were trying to figure out, you know, like where he was from, if there was any family to reach out, because they needed to reach out and tell the news to a family member. So one officer was assigned to track down his family. He ended up searching for hours, but he came up short. You know, there was no family record found at all. But what he did discover was that John served in the U.S. Army from 1966 to 1968. And they thought a veteran deserved a funeral. So they even got him into a national cemetery with military honors. So they actually worked with the local veterans organization, gave him full honors at his funeral, and invited the public to join and show their respect. They say that this happens way too often, and John is just one of the many stories. The Dignity Memorial Homeless Veterans Burial Program is a joint effort by funeral homes and the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs that aims to provide burial services for homeless veterans, according to the website that it says. It's actually coordinated more than 1,700 services. So in 2019, there were over 37,000 veterans living on the streets, according to the Department of Veteran Affairs. In addition to the lack of affordable housing and livable income that affects all the homeless people, veterans have to live with, of course, the lingering effects of post-traumatic stress disorder and substance abuse, compounded by the lack of, you know, family and social support networks. So I guess this is, you know, it's more common than we see stories come up. So John is just kind of one of many. So it's kind of cool to read about his story and get that out there in the open. So dozens of people came to pay their respect to John's funeral, including veterans that live in the state or live in Florida or just around, and heard about the memorial service. It's definitely cool to see people, you know, recognize the veterans and go above and beyond, especially when they have no family or anyone to do it for them. Now, I have a pretty incredible story here. The San Francisco Giants have hired the first female MLB coach in history. Super cool. They hired Alyssa Jo. They just announced it, and it's making her the first female coach in Major League Baseball history. Absolutely crazy. So she is 3-time academic All-American softball player from Sacramento State. She was hired by the Giants back in 2014 just as an intern, and she's since kind of worked her way through the organization to the Major League staff. So before her promotions, she was responsible for leading a number of different teams, health and wellness events basically. But last month, she was nominated by her peers and co-awarded the 2019 Sprinkles of Love Award, which is a Giants honor, basically for her ethics, her professionalism, and her humanitarianism. So she's definitely been recognized from different aspects in the organization, which is pretty cool. And now she's officially named the assistant coach under the Giants' new manager, Gabe Kapler. And he says, in every organization, environmental affects performance, and baseball clubhouses are no different. That's why in addition to assisting the rest of the coaching staff on the field, Mark and Alyssa will focus on fostering a clubhouse culture that promotes high performance through, among other attributes, and a deep sense of collaboration and team. I just think that is so cool. The first female MLB coach of history, Alyssa Natkin. So definitely going to have to watch out for that now. Now, I don't know if you know Jason Momoa. You might know him as the Aquaman star. And he says that the best thing about being Aquaman is being able to go and, put a smile on kids' faces. So he recently stopped by the hospital of Pittsburgh to visit brave patients and their families. Kind of a cool story. He's currently filming a new Netflix film in Pennsylvania. And like I said, he said the greatest part of being Aquaman is making children happy. Spreading aloha, had a little time before work to stop by the Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh. So he actually even challenged a couple patients to an arm wrestling contest. One in particular, his name was Joshua. And he said the stakes were very high. He told Joshua that if he wins, he would invite him to the set of Aquaman 2. Jason, of course, was defeated in seconds. And he says, see you on set of Aquaman 2, Joshua. Stay strong. So there was a flood of images all over Instagram and different social media platforms of Jason with these kids. Definitely so amazing to see, these big stars go in and use their work to put a smile on kids' faces that are going through a tough time. Now, my next story is about a gun rights advocates who had a rally in Richmond. Usually some of these rallies can get a little bit crazy. They can leave a mess, and people, aren't necessarily as much as just about the rally. They're not angry about the rally, but they're angry about, the aftermath of it, and it can be very disrespectful in some communities, in some places, depending. So this gun rights rally, the advocates of the gun rights, did this rally in Richmond. Thousands of people flooded the surrounding streets of the capital in Richmond for a gun rights rally. So usually, it kind of can make people very angry, but locals in the area say that the roads were the cleanest they have ever seen them in quite some time. One of the protesters says, I've been in the area when they have been doing other protests, and it demonstrates how people leave, a lot of trash behind, and it waters down the message. So this group actually made sure to clean up everything really well before they left. They picked up everything and actually made it even look cleaner than they, began. The Richmond president, Jack Hamilton, said that, they picked up absolutely everything. They made it look very nice, cleaner than it's ever been. So around 22,000 pro-gun activists took the streets in downtown Richmond during this very peaceful protest. And they kind of put this out to the news just to, send a message that, if you are doing these rallies and stuff, you have to respect the communities. So it was just cool to see this gun rights advocates, do their rally and everything, but then make sure that they clean up after. And so, you're not disturbing the community, you're not disturbing the city or the town, and you're just doing, what you came to do, doing your rally. It is time, though, for another break, but when we get back, I have a story about some Chick-fil-A employees. If you've listened to some past episodes, you might have heard me talk about a recent story with another Chick-fil-A employee, with a video that went viral. And I guess their employees are still just going above and beyond. So stay tuned for that. Thank you.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
You're listening to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm going to jump right into this Chick-fil-A employee story. It is amazing. So like I said, if you did catch one of the past episodes, I talked about a story with a Chick-fil-A employee who's basically just gone above and beyond with kindness, and this video went viral. He was working the window, and he was just amazing with the customers, and so Chick-fil-A employees are still going viral. They go above and beyond to serve their customers, I guess. So Lauren Langley from Alabama wrote on Facebook about how two Chick-fil-A employees rescued her and her sons from their car in the middle of a very heavy storm, and they offered them shelter in the restaurant. So I'm going to read this post that she wrote on Facebook. So she says, I have to share this because it's literally the most scary minutes of my entire 33 years. And also because I have to give credit where credit is due. The boys and I went to Walmart to grab a few things before the storm hits. When we left, we went across to Chick-fil-A, a drive-thru, to get lunch and ice cream. I started my order, and the heaviest, darkest clouds, heaviest rain I've ever seen came out of nowhere and very fast. I stopped mid-order, rolled my window up, and pulled over into the parking spot. By the time my car was literally shaking side to side, I couldn't see out the window. There was lots of lightning strikes hitting around us. The trees were bending completely in half around us. The boys were screaming at the top of their lungs, and I, for the first time since I became a mother, felt completely clueless and helpless on what to do. I didn't know what was going to happen next, and I'm still not exactly sure what we experienced, whether it was just a severe straight line winds or an actual tornado or wall cloud above us that didn't touch down. Just then, two Chick-fil-A employees ran up to my window and told us to get inside. I grabbed both boys and ran as fast as I could inside the building, running against wind and rain that strong that was insanely hard. We looked like we had been swimming when we got inside. They let us take shelter in their kitchen area and provide towels for us to dry off with. After the worst of the storm passed, we came out and they asked if we wanted to order. It was still pouring, and I told them my debit card was in the car, so I'd go back through the drive-thru. They generously offered us lunch and ice cream for free. What amazing customer service and genuine care from all the employees there. From them running to my car to get us, letting us take shelter, giving us towels, and then our lunch on them. I already thought Chick-fil-A was the best, but they exceeded the best service today. I'm so thankful that we are safe, and I hope that this is the boys' first and last tornado story that they have to experience. Super cool. Like I said, I'm hearing so many stories about Chick-fil-A employees going above and beyond, and I love it when people, go to social media, take it to the news, whatever it is, to give credit where credit is due. Now, my next story is about a 4-year-old. She has a very rare skin condition, and she has recently signed a modeling contract. Her story is pretty unique. So, she signed this modeling contract. Her and her family are hoping to redefine, what beauty really means. Her name is Harper Foy. She does not look like other girls her age. She has a very unique appearance. She's from Washington State. And when her mother's name is Angie, when Angie was pregnant, they had no idea that Harper had this rare condition. So when she was in the womb, they had no idea. But as soon as she was being born, all the doctors stopped, rushed over, Angie kept asking, you know, what's wrong, what's going on, like, what is happening, and she ended up having a genetic condition that the hospital had never seen before. Now, I'm not going to say this right. Harlequin ichthyosis? I hope I kind of got that somewhat. They call it HI. Some babies who are born with it only live for a few days after being born. The doctors told Angie that, you know, they weren't sure if she was going to be able to make it. And Angie said that she was on morphine, so she actually doesn't really remember a lot of it. She just remembers getting transferred and not knowing, you know, if her baby was going to be alive. But Harper is a fighter. She survived those first few days, and now she is thriving at home in Washington State. So despite needing around-the-clock care, her mother handles most of it, including 3 to 4 hour baths or showers a day. Crazy. And constant application of Aquaphor to her skin. Angie says that she carries Aquaphor with her absolutely everywhere. And then when they take Harper out of the house, and especially when she's not all lubed up with her Aquaphor, that's when people start to really stare. Her skin is like very, very red. And since she is so red, you know, that's kind of what stops people. And they say so how Angie kind of explains it is as kind of like a fish or snake skin. She basically makes new skin just like a snake does. She sheds every couple of hours, just like a snake kind of would. But, however, Harper seems to have taken to her condition completely fine. So far, she isn't self-conscious about her appearance. I guess she has the best, coolest personality, which really shines through. And then everyone becomes fascinated with her story. And that's kind of why she's been getting some modeling contracts, because, of course, she is different. And, you know, a lot more agencies are coming out with different looks and trying to, you know, redefine beauty for every shape, size, condition, whatever it is. And so then, especially with her cool personality, and I guess she really takes to the camera, like just instantly, you know, she's just meant to be in front of the camera, which inspired a Seattle agency to take her on. So Harper is currently only the 20th person in the U.S. to be living with this condition. There isn't much data on the condition. The oldest person that they know with HI is 34 years old in Hong Kong. But super interesting, super inspiring. Now, my last story for today's episode is about a St. Louis church. I shouldn't say church. Churches who have erased nearly $13 million in medical debt for families in the community. Yes, $13 million. It's crazy. More than 11,000 families in St. Louis will learn this week that their medical debt has been completely paid off, thanks to donations from different local churches. So, United Church of Christ congregations and the Deaconess Foundation announced that they have purchased $12.9 million in medical debt for a fraction of the cost. They worked with the New York-based nonprofit RIP Medical Debt, which used the donations to purchase the debt from the collectors. So they wanted to say that they address those who are living at or below poverty in the community, and they hope that this will be a shot of hope into their region, a shot of hope into their neighbors, and hope that it will challenge and spur, you know, other organizations and churches to do the same and help out where they can. So these St. Louis churches erased $13 million in medical debt in the community. It helped 78 zip zones in the St. Louis region. You know, I cannot even imagine getting that amazing news, getting that phone call. But that is all the feel-good, happy stories that I have for you today. As always, I had an amazing time sharing these stories with you. Please do not forget to hit that subscribe button, to like and follow us on social media, and leave a 5-star review. Till next time, I look forward to it. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows. From the GSMC Podcast Network, from social media news to marketing news, and even weird news, the GSMC Podcast Network has you covered. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast.